Ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off episode 85 of Partners in Crime, I should apologise for the sound quality you'll hear in some aspects of today's episode. We were trying a new piece of software so that Adrian and I could record the podcast from our respective homes. It didn't work very well. It's still perfectly usable. We hope you enjoy the episode, and we won't be using that software again.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and...
Not the other one. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to episode 85, I believe it is, of Partners in Crime. Unless, of course, you believe Apple Podcasts app, which claims that this is 86. Interestingly, they decided they're going to take the pilot episode that we recorded about 2 or 3 years ago as the first one, whereas that was not actually an episode. But there we go. I digress. We're back here for another week, and another week with our, it sounds a bit silly now saying guest presenter, but regular guest presenter, Adrian Hobart. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, I got a loyalty card now, have I?
You have, yeah. You have to start picking up a salary. Although I do have it on good authority that Mr. Dawes will be back for next week's episode. Not sure how many for, but he does have a break in his grueling schedule touring with Bill Kenwright's Alan Ayckbourn 10 times table, which is doing stonkingly brilliant all around the UK at the moment. Have you had a busy week, Adrian?
I have had a busy week, and it's been a busy week with... a number of sort of creative projects and business things, but also quite a lot of sort of strange family sort of goings on. So
families are strange.
Well, they are. I mean, I had this sort of bizarre experience of taking, you call him my stepson, but anyway, 10-year-old Toby from my new relationship up to see my son James, who's 15, played squash on Sunday, and that was sort of fascinating dynamic to see the two of them interacting, and it went really well. So, yeah, it's been a positive week.
Good. And we both have sons, James.
We do.
Of course.
Mine's into fireman Sam, just like yours, yeah.
Oh, really? Excellent. And have you been getting in some time to read during all of these sporting activities and family time?
I have indeed, yeah. I've been sort of toting my novels around the place and reading when I can. So I've just had a crack at I'll Keep You Safe by Peter May, which came out last year, I think, and I adore his work because, well, obviously a lot of it is set in Brighton, which is one of my favourite places on the planet, but this one's set in Paris, and he's a master. He really is. And to watch him work essentially with a foreign system, with a lot of trying to explain the French police system, but doing it so quickly and cleanly is really great. But yeah, he's a terrific sense of place that he creates and characters that very quickly establish themselves in your mind, especially the police officers. So I adore it. Yeah.
That's something that happened through Spiral or Spirale, Engrenage, I think it was, the TV series set in France, wasn't it? That all deals with the different ways that the French system, the French judiciary system, I guess, works, which is it's run by the judges, I believe, isn't it? Rather than the police who do the investigation, then refer up to CPS and then it goes to court. Isn't it kind of a top down?
Yeah, it's a sort of reversal of what we're used to in the UK. Absolutely. But I also love the fact that unless this is total fiction, that French police seem to be of an older school, perhaps, than modern police in the UK. So, yeah. They seem to chain smoke an awful lot in this particular novel.
That's just the French for you. Anyway, if you want to get hold of that book or any others we talk about today, and there are going to be a couple, then the best way of doing that is to use your exclusive Partners in Crime discount code. If you head over to kobo.com, Kobo very kindly sponsor this podcast, and if you enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, then they will give you 90% off of your first ebook purchase with Kobo. That one is on there, the Peter May book, which was called again. Sorry, Adrian.
I'll Keep You Safe.
I'll keep you safe. And I've been reading one as well, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But if you did, of course, want to use your Kobo discount code CRIME for 90% off your first ebook, or if you're an existing Kobo customer, use the promo code PARTNERS for 40% off ongoing. Might be a good idea to perhaps consider using that on the exclusive digital pre-order of my new book, The Ninth Night in Culverhouse in Plain Sight, which is out 2 weeks today, 13th of December. It's already discounted for the pre-order period, but of course that's adding your Kobo discount code means you can get even more off. And another one I'm going to recommend, one I've been reading this week, is Dead-Eyed by Matt Brolly, the first book in the DCI Michael Lambert series. I met Matt at Morecambe and Vice, which you were at as well earlier this year, Adrian. And been meaning to read his stuff for a long time, so I thought, well, what better way to do it than to actually get him to sign it while I'm there. And I did check on Kobo this morning, and that book is currently, and I can't say it will be still when we go to air, but I presume it will be, currently showing at 99p for the ebook on Kobo. So if you were to use your crime discount code, I estimate you would get that book for under 10p.
Wow.
So there's really no reason not to, or about 60p if you're an existing listener and you're using the promo code PARTNERS. So really no reason not to get that, and plenty more reasons I can give you to get it, because it's an excellent book. I'm only about halfway through it. I don't normally start to recommend books at this stage, but I am, because it's gripping. It's a stunning debut. It's always quite interesting when you read new detectives in their first book and feel like you know them very quickly. That's always something I find
it's a real test, isn't it? That's an absolute,
it's
such an accolade.
Yeah. So highly recommend Dead-Eyed by Matt Brolly there. And of course, you're not going to find a better discount or a cheaper book than that. I'm not sure that's a quote Matt wants to put on his cover, but there we go. It's a recommendation all the same, isn't it? Something else I've been doing this week is, as I do, looking through the news for crime fiction stories. And on bookriot.com, I found an interesting article by Matt Coleman about essential Georgia crime fiction, Georgia being a US state, not the European country. And in the article, he says there are several things the South knows how to do well. And while many involve the proper ways to make bread products, one is how to write crime fiction. And he makes some recommendations, which include Watch What You Say by George Weinstein, I think is how you would pronounce that, which blends psychological thriller and science. The Marriage Lie by Kimberly Bell, which was a semi-finalist in 27 Goodreads Choice Awards for Best Mystery and Thriller and has been translated into 10 languages. The Moaning Bench by Larry Copeland, which is a murder mystery set in Georgia in 1980. Lightning Men by Thomas Mullen, which follows the characters from Darktown, his book of 2 years earlier, which is named one of the top 10 crime novels of 2017 by the New York Times Book Review. And the last two are The Undiscovered Country by Mike Nemeth, which is a candy-coated prescription for America's social ills disguised as a crime fiction thriller, apparently. And Nikki Salcedo's All Beautiful Things, which is a romantic suspense novel which earned her the Maggie Award of Excellence and a Golden Heart nomination. Interestingly, they'll all be new books to me. Were you familiar with any of those, Adrian?
No, I'm not. No, I mean, I guess I access crime fiction through in that sort of area through, the likes of John Grisham, or I'm reading one also the sort of David Baldacci, which is set in Mississippi, where his character Roby, who's a government hitman, goes back to see his past. So you can. I've not accessed sort of crime fiction per se, which is based in a particular state or the southern states, but occasionally you get the tales that will drift in that way. And I do love the setting. The oppressive heat, the humidity always seems to play a part. I think there is a certain quality to those states. I mean, I've only travelled to those sort of areas once in my life, and I can see how brilliantly they would work as a crime setting. Absolutely.
Very culturally rich area as well. And I mean, as somebody who's never visited that part of the world, it's I guess maybe it's slightly skewed by the characters we tend to see that reach us over here. But those kind of southern characters and the southern culture does seem to lend itself very well to that genre. And there seems to be lots of kind of family secrets and things that. And some very characters knocking around. I'm not sure how representative that is of Georgia and of the deep south, but it strikes me as being a quite an ideal setting in many ways, as you say.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, my trip, if I dare I say it, was actually to find the best barbecue in the area. So few us as 20-something men decided that was what we had to do, and try and give ourselves bowel cancer in the interest of research, finding the best barbecue in each state. So
when you said you headed to the deep south in search for barbecue, I had visions of you heading to B&Q in Stafford, but getting lost on the way.
Yeah. Well, it's a struggle in Stafford to find decent barbecue at the moment, but I did find the other day my new favourite cafe ever, which is a proper, dare I say it, greasy spoon, doing the fried bread and all that sort of thing for absolutely nothing. It was fantastic. I'd just taken a couple of the lads to run their park run, and I sat and read a book while they ran through the fog of Cannock Chase, and then we found this amazing cafe, and it just felt, there's still places like this. Great welcome, half decent coffee, but the best fry-up I've had in years. So it was just great.
Well, we've been missing the Hugh Fraser restaurant reviews on Partners in Crime for a while now. So there's your very first Adrian Hobart restaurant recommendation. Do you know the name of that wonderful place in Stafford?
Yes, it's Cafe Paps.
Cafe Paps in Stafford. Big up yourself.
Oh, look, they do one of those challenge breakfasts where if you eat it all within an hour, you get it for free. It costs £25, and it includes. I don't know if you've encountered this, Adam, but the Lorne sausage, the square sausage they eat in Scotland.
Oh yes,
you had to have 3 of those. It's 4 sausages, 3 bacon, 3 black pudding. I think it's 3 eggs. You name it. Everything's 3 basically, and it's monumental by the sounds of it. But something in me tells me I should try it sometime.
I was going to say, please tell me that's what you were doing while your boys were smashing a park run.
That's
sitting there destroying a huge breakfast.
Well, I'm gonna sort of starve myself for 3 days and take it on. I think it has to be done.
Yeah, I would. Yes, go for it. Like maybe we should do Partners in Crime live from Cafe Paps.
Yeah, we'd have to wear high vis. That seemed to be a sort of obligatory.
Yes, of course. Yes, yeah, and lots of Brexit talk, which we'll get onto in a minute, actually, in the news. But first of all, don't switch off just yet. I saw in Variety.com this week an article which said that Harrison Ford could soon be taking on the first regular television role of his career. And yes, it is crime related. He is attached, apparently, to star in a series adaptation of The Staircase, the docuseries that detailed the trial of American novelist Michael Peterson, who was accused of murdering his wife in 2001. Peterson claimed his wife died after falling down the stairs at their home, but police suspected he bludgeoned her to death and staged the scene to look like an accident, says Variety.com. They add that the project is currently being shopped to networks and streaming services. The original docuseries was released in 2004, and Netflix released it as a 13-episode series in 2018. Is this one you've seen, Adrian, or are you still to find that on Netflix?
I am still to find that one on Netflix. I'm deep in The Crown at the moment.
I won't tell anyone.
No, I am really surprised that Harrison Ford is going to step into TV potentially, because he's one of these people who publicizes his movies incredibly grudgingly, has a real downer on his roles in Star Wars. You know, he has that sort of feeling of a curmudgeon, and, you know, he speaks like this when he's on. You know, so I don't know, you can. What did he say about George Lucas's scripts? I can't use the word. It began with S. You can type this S, but you sure as hell can't say it.
I was just thinking, you know what? When we started this podcast, Bob and I said, you know, what are we going to do in terms of, you know, swearing and things like that? Because, you know, there is no watershed. We aren't restricted as such in that sense. And we said, you know, yeah, if it comes up and if it's right, then we'll use it. And I was thinking then, when you when you alluded to it, I thought, there's no reason not to say it. I don't think we ever have in 85 episodes. So I'm kind of.
Yeah, it's time to break that taboo, is it?
84 clean episodes, and then all of a sudden, maybe we'll save that for the breakfast special when you're trying to get 3 Lorne sausages down your neck.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does sound really interesting. The series adaptation of The Staircase. So yeah, Michael Peterson claiming his wife had died after falling down the stairs, but the police suspected it were him all along. So more fiction and fact crossover I saw this week in the Limerick Leader, which of course I read cover to cover every day. An article by David Hurley. Which said, according to a Limerick judge, the cashing of a stolen cheque was like a plot from a novel. Not entirely sure I agree with that summary, but it was a really interesting read, and it actually kind of made me quite like the Limerick Leader and any local newspapers who managed to take quite a small, insignificant story and turn it into something. But in short, 2 men pleaded guilty to money laundering charges relating to the cashing of a stolen cheque worth almost €50,000. The cheque was made out to Fingal County Council. It was intercepted and altered and subsequently lodged into a bank account held by Adamola Oletan, who admitted transferring the money to another account after it was initially lodged, and his co-accused has admitted receiving and transferring €15,000. Sounds as if they'd essentially somehow managed to get hold of the cheque, alter the payee name on it, and pay it into a different account that this chap held. So Detective Sergeant McCafferty, who doesn't sound very Irish at all, of the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau, said an investigation was launched in March 2015 after a complaint was received from Ulster Bank. The judge, Mr. O'Sullivan, submitted that the case was strong and there were elements of fiction in the explanations put forward by the defendants. This wasn't the judge. I can't remember who Mr. O'Sullivan is, but adjourning the matter to the New Year, Judge Tom O'Donnell, again, not a very Irish name, commented what happened was more like a plot out of a Jeffrey Archer novel, which probably isn't the most ringing endorsement. And I can't remember the specific Jeffrey Archer novel in which a man changes a name on a cheque. I can't.
No, I can't say.
Mind.
Well, it's funny because I had an encounter with Jeffrey Archer on one occasion when I worked in a bookshop. Yes, well, actually several, but the main one that I remember was. I was working at a bookshop in Cambridge, and he came in and demanded to see the manager and demanded to know why his novels weren't in a special display in the window. And
I think I can answer that.
Anyway, I mean, you know, being the sort of family business it was, they actually kowtowed and actually did do it. And next day, there it was, you know, Cain and Abel, and, you know, all the other novels were proudly displayed in the front of this major bookshop in the centre of Cambridge, and that was bizarre. But that was the thing about working in retail in Cambridge when I was a teenager. You know, you used to rub shoulders with these people, and I'm thinking with some regret, really, that we heard this week that Clive James had passed on. Again, legend of the Cambridge sort of scene, but I bridled a little bit this week when descriptions on the news described him purely as a TV critic, and some of them called him a comic. And actually, he was a really great writer, great poet. So his literary achievements were sort of buried by an awful lot of the broadcast media, who simply remember him as this avuncular Australian taking the mickey out of Japanese TV shows. But again, I rubbed shoulders with him. I sold him a suit once when I was working at M&S in Cambridge, and I just remember saying to him, "What do you want from your suit? Do you want endurance?" And he went, "That'd be funny, kiddo," because that was the Japanese TV show that he used to pick up on every week, Endurance. And
gotcha.
Yeah,
He didn't demand you put his suit at the front in the window then.
No, he didn't demand that. On another occasion, I had Jermaine Greer trying to buy printer cartridges, and she lost it because I didn't know which ones to look for. I'd only been in that department for one day, and she got very upset with me. So, yeah, it was one of those places where, these people would sort of rub shoulders, but, in a very prosaic way.
There you go. Don't go shopping in Cambridge is the takeaway from that little discussion, I think. While we were talking about Ireland, the Journal reposted an article by the Press Association announcing, oddly, that British writer Lee Child, the creator of the Jack Reacher thriller series, is reportedly applying for an Irish passport due to Brexit. Child, whose real name is James Grant, is a best-selling author of thriller novels, just in case you didn't already know that, who has sold more than 100 million books. He lives between the UK and the US, but is entitled to an Irish passport as his father was born in Belfast. No comment on that from my point of view, seeing as I've done the same recently and now have a German passport. The author said he wants an Irish passport to avoid the possibility of post-Brexit travel restrictions in Europe. He says, "I haven't got a passport yet, but I will do very soon. It feels like I'm cheating, to be honest, as I will get in the back door," Child told the Irish Times. Of course, no political comment there from us. We're not that daft, but mentioning that because of the fairly obvious crime fiction links there. I thought that was an interesting piece, which we should probably move on from very quickly. While we're being political, Curve magazine had an article by Wendy Hurd on queer women in crime fiction, which I found very interesting and insightful this week. She opens by talking about a review she received on her second book, The Kill Club, which follows a lesbian protagonist into the machinations of an underground murder club. The review read, and I quote, "This book was absolutely great if you can get past the unusual love scenes," which of course is something that would stand out like a sore thumb, a comment like that on a book with a lesbian protagonist. So she sat down with 4 other authors, Wendy Hurd, and had a chat about this and how queer women in crime fiction and queer characters are received. And some of the, I'll pull out some quotes here from the article, which I found really interesting. For example, men aren't any better at writing queer women than they are at writing straight women. Queer women than they are writing straight women. Just because queer women and straight men both like women doesn't mean they think the same way. And a little mention there of Stieg Larsson, of course, with Lisbeth Salander. Perhaps not the best written queer woman in fiction. They go on to say, yes, it's true, queer people are more likely to be the victim of violent crime than straight people. That's a statistical fact. That is a story, they say, that needs to be told, but it needs to be told the right way by the right writers. Wording that looked much better written down than it did when I tried to say it. I mean, this is something we've kind of touched on in the past on previous episodes. I can't remember if it was with you, Adrian, or with Bob. The kind of the authenticity of writing. Men writing female characters, straight writers writing queer characters. I guess obviously we don't want to say, only only bisexual people can write bisexual characters or whatever, but I think it certainly is underrepresented, I think, in that sense, that we do tend to have these characters either as kind of token additions, or their sexuality or any aspect of them in that sense is used as the thing rather than just a part of that character. It's a delicate subject, but I think one that needs bringing up and needs talking about.
Yeah, I think that there is this danger that when you take that stance that, only people with that experience or sexuality can actually represent and write characters from that standpoint, that's a really dangerous thing to say. I mean, I think that, it behoves every author surely to research what they're writing about and speak to the people who've experienced, whether it's, in the case of crime novels, you talk to the people involved in solving crimes. So it's authentic because it will quickly be exposed if it's not. In the same way, we all in our lives have, a variety of social contacts, might be within the family, might be, close friends who can perhaps shed light on the thinking. But ultimately, every single person, that's not to say that, everybody who's bisexual feels the same way and approaches their sexuality in the same way as another bisexual person. That would be ridiculous too. So I think that to prescribe, straight authors from writing characters from a different sexuality is ridiculous, frankly. But it does behove those authors to do the characters justice and to make them as authentic as possible, and not simply, assume things that an approach that I mean, I think it's fair to say, if a straight man is writing a lesbian character and then assumes that their impulses are the same, it would be wrong. But it's all a question of research and values and authenticity when it boils down to it. And if it's coming from a good place, then let them do it. I mean, I just think it's crazy if you do that. Otherwise, you are going to make sure that someone, say if I'm writing, then all I can write is straight men. I mean, that's ridiculous, surely.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that there is no call in this article or from these authors, that straight men or straight people shouldn't be able to write gay, lesbian, bisexual characters. That's there is no call that I can see for that. Just that it would be good and useful and more authentic if writers of those backgrounds were writing those characters or were more visible, more audible. So I think that's probably the call they're putting out there. I couldn't see any kind of mention that nobody else should write them. And of course, we do have some wonderful queer women writers. Val McDermid, Patricia Cornwell jump to mind, and a lot of the time, it mentions here that those sorts of characters are often supporting characters rather than main characters. The article closes with quite an interesting paragraph, which reads: "Crime fiction has historically been a breeding ground for archetypes: the tough guy PI, the dead blonde, the unreliable female witness, the urban neighborhood home to people of color through which the detective navigates. Many crime fiction authors are working to upend these archetypes, introducing women into leading roles traditionally occupied by men." So things are changing. So we're heading in the right direction there. And yes. I found that a really kind of interesting article actually this week. It's
and I guess if you look a generation ago, it was surprising when prime suspect in Linda LaPlante, had a DCI who was a woman. So in that sense, that was groundbreaking at the time, and now that's not seen as such now. So yes, I guess these are the next frontiers for crime fiction to pioneer through.
Indeed. Another quick piece I wanted to touch on was an article which is, I guess, meant to advertise the National's new podcast, the theatre in London. They've got a podcast, Books of My Life, and Ian Rankin appeared on this in, I think, the most recent episode. The Scottish novelist spoke to Books of My Life about Inspector Rebus, Lee Child, and why he has never read Agatha Christie. The article says, "It must be an odd feeling finishing a novel you consider to be literary fiction, only to discover it hidden away in the crime section of your local bookstore. But this is exactly what happened to Ian Rankin. And 22 Rebus novels later, it's fair to say he has very much embraced being a writer of crime fiction." The article says it is his reluctance to change with the times that endears him to so many readers, as well to his creator, talking about Rebus himself. Ian Rankin said, I'm probably fonder of Rebus than he would be of me. He'd see me as a wishy-washy liberal. He's more of an Old Testament character who sees the world in absolutes of good and evil. My conversation with him in the books is to persuade him that there are shades of grey between those absolutes. Each book to me feels like a brand new adventure, which reminded me very much of my relationship with Jack Culverhouse, I must say.
Yes.
So yeah, do check out the Nationals Books of My Life podcast on that one.
That's terrific, yeah. The only thing I picked up from Ian Rankin this week is that he's going to move Rebus into a bungalow. Because his his COPD lung disease is so bad that he can't get up the stairs of his tenement block. So that is a character development. It's taken 22 books to get there, but
well, yes, yeah, might have to look at giving Jack Culverhouse his own little bungalow or assisted living apartment.
Oh, he's got plenty of life in him yet. Yeah.
I hope so. Yes, yeah. You just want more audiobook contracts, you do.
Yeah, bluntly, yeah.
Speaking of audio, that's about half an hour of that one done. So I think that will probably do for this week. If you're finished,
yes, indeed.
Good. As I say, Mr. Dawes should be back next week. We have it on good authority. We're going to do a bit of an early record on that one. So, yes, for any of you who've forgotten what he sounds like, congratulations, but I'm sorry you're going to have to get used to his voice again.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and
Not the other one.
And produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.